you took the time there we go. Hello, everyone. We're so glad that you stopped by at this 8th session of Roundtable sessions. If we can mute ourselves. Okay. I am Crystal Crampton. If you did not know, I am a co-chair of Pennsylvania Hallowed Grounds. I'm a co-founder of the Roundtable sessions. We thank you for coming today. We're going to get started. We just have some house rules. If you can self-mute yourself, turn your camera off if you need to move from space to space, because that takes away from the presenter. If you can put your questions in the chat, and we will get to those after all the presenters have presented. Also, in the chat, you will find links, bios, and resources. And it will also be on the PAHG website. I'd like to introduce Bertha Jackman, who is a board member of PAHG, and she's also a co-founder of the Roundtable Sessions. Bertha?
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming and being part of this Stewards Roundtable. As you can see, the roundtable is called What You Need to Know About Juneteenth. And we have 3 speakers who are experts in the field. And one of the topics that they'll be talking about in their presentations is about Juneteenth and cemeteries, seeing as how Pennsylvania Hallowed Grounds is about cemeteries. So I'm going to introduce the first speaker. His name is Joe Becton. And to save time, because all 3 gentlemen, their bios, they call them short bios, but it takes actually a few minutes to read all of them. So what I'm going to do is just tell you what their titles are. They can tell you a little bit more about themselves. And each one has about 12 to 15 minutes in this presentation. So the first speaker is Joe Becton. Joe Becton is a historian, griot, teacher, philosopher, musician, father, grandfather, husband, Revolutionary and Civil War reenactor, and a board member of Pennsylvania Hallowed Grounds. And I will introduce each one of them when their turn comes up. So Joe Becton, you have the floor. Joe, you're on mute.
How about now? Can you be heard?
You're good to go.
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, very good. Well, I'm so happy to be here this evening to talk about Juneteenth and its meaning. As you all are probably aware, there's a lot of confusion about what Juneteenth means, where it came from, what's it about. It can be very, very confusing. For me, I first learned about Juneteenth in Pensacola, Florida. I went to the University of West Florida, and I was a veteran, so they gave me a veterans work study job working in the cemetery. That's right. So that's why I ran into my first United States colored troops buried in that cemetery, as well as the first stories that I heard about Juneteenth and that tremendous change and celebration in American history. And of course, that is what Juneteenth is. It's a celebration of freedom. A lot of people don't get it. I heard a young woman not too long ago on television saying, well, this is the wrong day. It should be August 18th, like they have in Ohio, the Emancipation Day. Or it should be the 4th of July when the Declaration was written. Or it should be the 1st of January for Watch Night. So she had a lot of ideas about what should be rather than this day. But I'd just like to start out by saying, and I know that Ron's going to go into this more. It all begins with the Bible. That's right. That's right. The year of Jubilee. All right. The year of Kingdom Come. So it's in the book of Leviticus, around chapter 25, where they talk about every person has the right to own someone else. But at the end of 50 years, that was a Jubilee year. When that year, contracts would be ended, enslavements would be ended, and people would be free. People who were debtors, their debts would be forgiven. So all these things are right there in the, as we call it sometimes, the good book. And it traces back to then. So in those 1865, we heard a lot of people yelling and screaming, it's the Jubilee, the kingdom has come. The Jubilee. There was even a song, I don't like the song, but there was even a song about in the year of Jubilee. So that's their big connection. But the connection goes much deeper than that. Think of it. Just today or yesterday, we celebrated the Eid. You said, well, wait a minute, Eid, wait a minute, what's going on? That's Islam, Eid, yes. And it's the same time. The same time as our Juneteenth. The same time as our summer solstice. The longest day of the year. So when we start to look at these things, we can see that they not only have this American connection, as so many people say, this is not an African holiday. Well, actually, it's a world holiday. It's the solstice, the longest day of the year, and it's celebrated and recognized around the world. Of course, there were those who would say that our ancestors didn't know about it. Well, if they didn't know about it, why'd they pick June 19th or Juneteenth? I think they did certainly know about it. How can you not notice, the longest day of the year? So that's where our origins are. Now, what makes this particular event and this particular issue is, of course, American slavery. Now, of course, a lot of times we talk about America as being the birthplace of freedom, but that's a little iffy. It's a little iffy. If we look at our Declaration of Independence, you'll notice that the word freedom is not there. Or how about the Constitution? You look at our Constitution and you notice that the word freedom is not there. So it raises some very real questions as to maybe what is the true birthplace of freedom. Now, in the Western world, there was one country that ended slavery, at least 20 years or so before any other. Of course, everybody knows the name, of course. Haiti, the name of it. Sometimes we call it Haiti, the island of Hispaniola. So, around 1804, De Saline said that any escaping person who puts their foot on the soil of Haiti will be absolutely free. Absolutely free. Let me say it again, absolutely free. So that was that particular statement. As we remember, the French had their three words they used: liberty, equality, and that's right, fraternity. Yeah, I'm sorry, ladies, they were kind of sexist. Yes, they were, but that's what they said. So in the beginning, that first island, Haiti, at the time, Hispaniola was said to be the richest island in the world. And of course, the Western world has never stopped punishing them for their rejection of slavery, and their cutting them down on the sugar market, and those kinds of things. And of course, today, we look at the island of Hispaniola, and it's claimed to be one of the poorest islands in the world. So that's the reaction that the Western world had to them and their fight against slavery and divining what freedom is. So we start there. Of course, we could take one more step, because the next one is actually Mexico. In 1822, Mexico ended slavery. They broke away from Spain, and as they broke away from Spain, they ended slavery in Mexico. You say, wait a minute, how can that be? Well, it can be. As you know, a bunch of people moved into Texas. You know some of the names, the guy with the long knife and Davy Crockett, those kind of guys. They moved into Texas, and the Mexicans told them, welcome. Everyone's welcome in Mexico. Welcome, come on in. But you have three rules. Number one, you must speak Spanish. Number two, you must be Catholic. And number three, you must not have enslaved people. And of course, the English showed up and they said, no, no, no. And they started the Texas Revolution. At the end of the Texas Revolution in 1835, slavery was reinstated in Texas. So Texas has its own very, very special story when it comes to the struggle for freedom and the story of Juneteenth. So in a way, in Texas, Juneteenth was a rebirth of freedom in Mexico, which had been taken away when the English, sometimes the Mexicans call them the Anglos, when the Anglos showed up and established their thing. So sure enough, the war would come on, and the 4 reasons for the war: land, money, power, freedom. Land, money, power, freedom. So these are the 4 reasons for this war, and we believe in the 3rd Regiment, where I serve, the reasons for every war. Okay? So the land, our issue was the Missouri Compromise. Every time we added a free state, we would add a slave state. Right? So that was part of the Missouri Compromise. Okay? Another issue was the money. Okay? Millions of Africans were transported to America so they could grow. That's right, poisonous and addictive sugar. And of course, to this day, many of us are still working through that sugar addiction. As a matter of fact, I often tell people, I said, do you know anyone who is not addicted to sugar? And there are people who are not, but there are not many. So that sugar addiction, that was a big one. The next one that came after that, tobacco. Also poisonous and addictive. And what's worse than that, stinky. All right, tobacco. Now, in the 21st century, you would be surprised to see somebody walking around with a cigarette or cigar sticking out of their mouth when we know that it's poisonous and addictive. There was one more that meant the top of the list. There's several other ones smaller, indigo and things like that, rice. But the next one at the top of the list, of course, is cotton. So enslaved people were needed to grow these things. They grew those things. The enslaved people were not paid, of course, and they created an enormous profit. As a matter of fact, the profit was so big that we still are spending the money from that time of enslavement to this day. And of course, that's why many people suggest that maybe their reparations are due. I know that's a very unhappy topic, especially in places like Florida and Texas, but it is a topic that we will continue to discuss into the future. So these were the reasons for the war. And of course, Africans volunteered in the beginning. They said, no Africans, we don't need you. Pennsylvania said no to the African volunteer. New Jersey said no to the African volunteer. Delaware said no to the African volunteer. Ohio said no to the African volunteer. So for the black soldiers to become a part of the United States Army, or if you will, not the state militias, but the United States Army, the federal government had to pass special laws. They call it Militia Acts in 1862 that would allow for Africans to join the Army. And of course, all that was shouldered by that Emancipation Proclamation, which I'm not going to talk too much about it because I know the other guys are going to talk a lot about it. But just remember, the Emancipation was a clever trick. Lerone Bennett wrote about it and then it's forced into glory. Check him out. A clever trick. So they'll go on to explain what made it a clever trick as they continue. So I don't want to take up everything because you know me, I'll just keep talking. There'll be nothing left to talk about, right? So there it is. We've had our Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. Black soldiers come to the field. And they come to the field under this flag. You ever see it? You've seen some of it, but you haven't seen it all. Look at that wonderful circular pattern in there. That's the 34-star flag for the 34 states at the time of the United States. So, of course, the Confederates disagreed with that, and they had their own flag, right? And this is the beginning, the 7-star flag. Eventually, they have 11 stars on their flag. This is the true Confederate flag. Not to get too carried away with flags, but I'll be bringing them up and down again and again. So sure enough, we got the chance to join. You're going to get a new suit of clothes. That's right. Cut to the latest styles, made of the latest materials. And you're going to get $13 a month. Well, not really. We're not going to give you $13 a month because we give the white soldiers $13 a month. How about $10 a month? And come to think of it, since many of you are escaping from slavery, you only get $7 a month. The rumor is they don't think that we'll be able to take care of our clothes. So nonetheless, these are the guys that came together. They joined for those opportunities, but even more than those opportunities, they joined to make sure they will be able to free their mothers, their wives, their daughters, their cousins, and their family. So, 1863, things are getting shaky, but in 1861, who won most of the battles, North or South? Do you remember? South, 1861. In 1862, who won most of the battles, North or South? There it is again, South. In 1863, who won most of the battles, North or South? It's kind of a split in 1863. because that's when the black soldiers came online and they began to fight. By 1864, the tenor of the war had changed and the North began to win. Some people say, what a coincidence, Joe. At the time that the United States Colored Troop was formed, the Union began the wail of the Civil War. What a coincidence, or as the kid put it, what a coinkydink. Well, sure enough, that war would slowly come to an end. By 1865, it would be over, and at Appomattox Courthouse, there were black troops all over the place when those Confederates finally laid down their weapons. Now, of course, they didn't lay them down all at once. People out in Oklahoma and out in Texas were still fighting. So, in April of 1865, they began to reorganize the United States Colored Troops into a corps they called the 25th Corps. And they slowly began to shift them out of Virginia and out of North Carolina down into Florida, into Brownsville, and Matamoros, places like that. So that is the time when they start to arrive June 1st, and that's the time when they went from house to house, town to town, place to place. Every time you saw this flag, you know that it meant freedom. But of course, the question was, what does that mean? If the Yankees aren't here, who's free? No one. So the Yankees had to arrive. They had to invade the South and take over town after town, city after city, house after house, plantation after plantation, spreading that rumor of freedom. See, I say rumor because it was really kind of an emancipation rather than a real freedom for everyone. Well, sure enough, we began to celebrate around June 19th. And June 19th is the day they say that General Gordon read his General Order number 3, and that would let people know across Texas that they had been freed. Actually, I think that people probably knew there were earlier battles at a pass, and up in East Texas there were earlier battles. And of course, the final battle of the war was at a Palmetto Ranch, and that was Central Texas. So there were Africans and United States Colored Troops who came into Texas before June 19th and would be spreading that word of the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, I know that I'm not supposed to take up everybody's time, so we'll go from that Emancipation Proclamation to what the people felt and what they did. A lot of times we see descriptions of what happened. Many times those descriptions actually come from Richmond, when the fall of Richmond and Abraham Lincoln appeared in person at Richmond. So people were very excited about that. And there are a lot of documents and recordings of what happened in Richmond when Abe Lincoln got there. So many of our stories that we have about that actually come from places like Richmond, Virginia. So yes, that was the transition point. From that transition point, we stepped into Reconstruction. And maybe that's what makes Juneteenth so special, because out of Juneteenth came the Reconstruction. Black governments, we call them black and tan governments. That's right. So the black governments, what did they do? They set up the educational system. There was no educational system in the South for the public. They set it up. Waterworks, they set it up. No waterworks in the South. Fire departments, they set it up. No fire departments in the South. So in a real way, these black and tan governments grew out of the Juneteenth experience to create a modern government for the South. And of course, as we all know, the Southerners didn't lay down with this, and they continued to start a reign of terror. Did I say it? Yes, I did. It was a reign of terror. Murder, lynchings, just out and out warfare, lasted all the way until the 1920s, right? We remember with the destruction of Black Wall Street in Oklahoma. So this was a terror that continued all of that time unabated. So what ends the whole thing, or what makes the thing subside, is that when Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel Tilden joined together in 1877 in Chicago and made their deal to pull the Union troops out of the South and leave the Africans in the South abandoned to the reinstated Confederate soldiers who are now the government of the South. By the way, we did have numerous people in our government, but I'm going to leave that open for somebody else to talk about. So for my 15 minutes, and hopefully I haven't gone over, but for my 15 minutes, that's my introduction to Juneteenth, what led to it and what grew out of Juneteenth, and of course, why we still celebrate it today.
Well, Joe Becton, as I knew you would, you just started us off on the best note possible. And we're going to, because when we don't have Lenwood Sloan on at the moment, we're still trying to contact him. I'm going to, if you want to, better yet, let's start with Ron Brown. Ron, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let you go ahead and get started. And like I said, we're still trying to contact Lenwood. If he's not here, and if he's unable to get on, we will just go on and continue, and we'll go from there. Ron, you have the floor. Please unmute yourself. Oh, by the way, let me introduce you. Ron Brown. He's the founder of and the CEO of the Pennsylvania Juneteenth Coalition, and affectionately called Mr. Juneteenth, and he can tell you why.
That is good. I kept thinking, I don't have a clue here. How do I? and you say that. So I truly appreciate that volley to me. I truly appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, at least 99.9% of the people, or at least not in Pennsylvania, I would say 98% in the Northeast region, they did not know about Juneteenth until I came about it through a process of trying to identify, because I understood that July 4th was not the African holiday because they was in huts, they were slaves, and they couldn't celebrate it. So it has to be a day where there's a African American Freedom Day. And I searched every book. I went to Who's Who in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Robinson, Malefe. I could name, Sam Evans, Brother Blockson. I went to everyone to ask did anyone that I thought would know. They did not know. I went to all the libraries in the city of Philadelphia and was not able to find that name. And I had come to realize that at least 99.9% of people did not know anything about this Freedom Day. And I was fortunate to, after a year and I would say a year and 8-9 months of research, I then decided that I would start that Freedom Day. I'm just, I'm going to start it, and it's ironic, we don't give the power, understanding, true understanding about the woman. We really don't, especially the Black woman, because when you begin to look at the history, maybe though she was out there, they was out there doing, really no respect. And now you begin to hear some things are Harriet, And I took for granted my queen at the time, because nobody else knew. I never thought to ask my queen. And then I decided, I said to her, I want to start this day. Freedom Day, I'm going to start it. I never heard of it. We have to have it. She said, well, there's one already out there. And it's called Juneteenth. I said, how did you know? And no one knows in every library. But when she gave me the name, fortunately, that information, that woman gave me that name, I was able to go to the last library, and that was the Free Library. And I was able to find a book about Charles Taylor. He was talking about holidays. And with that information, I decided to take $10,000 out of my pocket. I didn't want to wait on and deal with anybody else, I took $10,000 out of my bank account, and I started that day in Germantown, Pennsylvania. First Juneteenth celebration in the state, as I said, and then and also throughout the Northeast. And I didn't know, and it was a 3-day event. And it was a 3-day event up in Germantown. And I wanted to say, because I'm studying the works of Absalom Jones and Free African Society and the works of the Masons. There was even information through Stokely Carmichael talking about organizations, bringing organizations to the table. Because see, in these organizations, with all the field of people in the through these organizations, there's numbers. There's greater numbers through organizations than just an individual. So I went up into Germantown, and I, went through the streets, and we gave them. The guy took a brother named Reuben Benson and gave this manifesto of 7 papers, and we took it throughout the businesses and organizations and social, all the fields, and asked them to be a part of this celebration. And we were able to get 150 organizations to participate in that first Juneteenth celebration, and we had it at 3 different sites. And we was fortunate because as I said, organizations. I mean, I was fortunate that also to get the press. Every time the Germantown Carrier, and got them side up. And what they did, they put a spread the first year of at least about 5 or 6 pages, and they went to the businesses to get them to paste ads and so through that through the press you understand through the press that information went all throughout throughout the United States. I didn't know I'm thinking how it's traveling. I'm getting calls from various people and but I did want it to be say on a doomsday because a doomsday is one event or one day all these people that I wanted to spread it so that every family, every organization, every person within the state was celebrated within their local communities. And so we started in Germantown, and then going through, and then we did a event we came out of Germantown, we did an event on the Parkway, all the way from 16th Street all the way to the Art Museum. And we also had a health fair. Parade, large, massive parades. So people understand. They talk about parades. I'm the person who started the parades and financed the parades in Philadelphia, the African American parades. And so we expanded from, because if I said to myself, if I'm going to get this thing to be a state holiday, I have to have it in every community throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And so I, went to, people probably know me because of my emails, but they don't know, there's 5,000 other, beyond it, 25,000, others beyond that. And so it's going into all the communities throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And as it's traveling, they're doing it and, having a Juneteenth and probably Pittsburgh and Allentown and Lancaster, they're having these Juneteenth events all. And I said, and while you're there, invite your politician, Republican, Democrat, to it, And they invited them to it, and they came. And when I made the decision to bring it into legislation, which was through the House in 2001, and the Senate in 2003, with Juneteenth recognized as a state holiday. And I do say that in every politician said yay. And not one African-American bill has ever been passed in the House or Senate, not one. And they all saying yay because they are going to, you want them to be there, see it. It's not threatening to them. Say a couple words to, because they're politicians, they want to say something to me, to get them to vote for them. Say, hey, I gotta say something, But at the same time, they're getting the experience of it. So when they say, oh yeah, I was there, yeah. So I was able to get it to do that. And I made a decision, when I wanted it to be a state, I made a decision when I wanted it to be a state legal holiday, which would be the second time this has ever been done in the United States. Second time. Only time it's been done is in Texas. 1980. 80, man, how many years that is? Second time it hasn't been done. It'd be an official holiday. And I made the decision to do it on the 400th anniversary, 1619. I chose to do it on that anniversary in 2019. See, I was fortunate because I said everybody said yay. And I have to say I was also blessed that I put it in the hands of two African Americans, and then when it did a white legislator who was trying to, the Republicans didn't want her, and then she was trying to win that district, and then she got opportunity to a guy named Lawrence to be her chair, and he said, "Hey, look, hey, make Juneteenth a state, like that station, put a bill in to make it a holiday." And that'll get you the votes. That'll get you in the Black community. And it actually worked, but it took it from the hands of two African Americans and put it into the hands of a white woman. And our battle between her and I wanted it to be on June 19th. And I wanted it to be a day where people, they get paid, a paid holiday. And she won on the third Saturday of June. So it was fortunate that the person who became the chair, his sister died. And she said just before that, she said, make this a state holiday, make it a holiday. Before I die. And then she died. So now the white woman says, I got to do this, make this thing a holiday. She said that she was in my office, she was alive. And so I said to her, I'm into marketing. I said, what we'll do, we'll market that also to the politicians that you're doing this, for this, because this woman, Black woman has said that, that she do this, and we'll market that through all these different politicians. So that's a nice story, And she's white, and she's a politician, and she's a Republican. And so it enables me to be in a position. All we had to do is have a compromise, and the compromise was that we won't be able to get a state holiday, official holiday. I mean, a legal way to get paid, and they'll make it a holiday on June 19th. So we was able to make that compromise, and we was able to make it a state holiday. And so from making it a state holiday in Pennsylvania the second time, I'm the Northeast Regional Director, so I have 11 states under me from Delaware all the way to Maine. And so I was also able to go into New York, which I'm into because I have organizations in New York, and get Como to make it a state holiday in New York. And then Mercy make it, a holiday in New Jersey. And they go and get a guy in Massachusetts who ended up putting it as a bill, to make it a state holiday. And he also needed Juneteenth because he was running to get one of the Kennedy boys, and everybody liked the Kennedys. And so he said, "Oh, let me get this bill. Let me put it." I said, "Yeah, go ahead." and he partnered with Kamala Harris, and we know that she became the vice president. And through that, we was in a position. And so even to make it a national holiday, we was able to get, before the state, we get the wolf, we had a ceremony, and it'd be a state holiday in Pennsylvania. And now they got it in a holiday in New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, and now we're putting the bill in so that it would be a national holiday. I also decided, starting in 2016, to do a walk, an open walk. And so, as I said, I'm into marketing. And the whole thing was the marketing, this 89-year-old woman.
Excuse me, Ron.
Yes.
I'm just going to say we have about 3 minutes left for you because Lenwood Sloan is on the call. So I think the big thing is how you came to work with the whole Juneteenth becoming a national holiday. We would like to hear that story.
And I was just getting ready to say, that was okay. You just cut me off right there.
All right,
and so what I did, I marketed this 89-year-old woman, and we put a petition out there for people to sign the petition to make Juneteenth a national holiday. It was this open walk. Sally put it, she's walking, and she would walk 5 miles. You would go to anywhere, she'd walk 5. So the thing was for her to walk from Texas all the way to Washington and get a bomber to sign it. And so that didn't work. But what I did was I got more in marketing, and I marketed that because the first year it only got 5,000 throughout the state. And so we was able to, we're fortunate, even around the time of George Floyd, because that's when I came back. Once I got it to be a state holiday, I had my base, and we was able to market it and get a base and get people to get it out there throughout the United States, And so, fortunately, during the protests and George Floyd, through that, now the protests, we have the legislators coming to us and says, "Hey, I'm ready. Are we ready to sign to make this a national? All you have to do." And so I sat at the table. I wrote the legislation, this legislation, because I did it in Pennsylvania. And so through the open walk, we was able to. All we needed was 100,000 petitions signed. We was able to get 1.6 million petitions signed to make it a national holiday. And so then we was able to assist, because it got to get political, to get the Democrats in power. And once we got them in power, which was the next year, because remember, Trump was the president, and the Republicans had it. And once we was able to get the House and the Senate, we was able to put a bill in to make it a national holiday. And so this is how Juneteenth, became. And we was also fortunate because Kamala Harris, as I said, she was at the table, and she had to become the vice president of the United States. So which made it a lot easier, But the history of Juneteenth, I should have got more so, because I didn't know how this thing was being set up.
Thank you, Ron.
And to the history is so much more important than I said. Even I should have said that, because as Joe said, it was Africans who went into the war through the Seventh Ward. Those Africans in the Seventh Ward was able to enlist to a place called Camp William Penn. And it was those soldiers from Camp William Penn, 6 veterans, the 6th, the 8th, the 22nd, the 44th, 43rd, 45th, and 127th. They was the ones that was able to defeat General Lee in Virginia. And defeat General Lee army in Virginia. And he was able to, after he defeated them, he was able to take Granger.
Ron, I really hate to cut you off, my dear, because you got a lot of interesting things to share with us, but our time is really running short, and we're going to have to get Lenwood in there just so that he can do his quick presentation, and we'll have a little time for Q&A. And anyone who has a question that we can't answer today, please still put it into the chat, and we will make sure that we respond to you if we don't have enough time at the end of the session, okay? Bertha, please take over.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ron Brown. Lenwood Sloan. Lenny Brown, Lenwood Sloan. He's the executive director of the International Institute for Peace Through Tourism, Commonwealth Monument Project. And Lenny, what we were doing is not doing your whole bio or even a short bio. We just giving out the titles, and then you can mention, you know, how that works with you as far as Juneteenth is concerned. Thank you. And right now it is 7:45 p.m. Okay.
Well, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was raised in Reverend Dr. Leroy Patrick's Bethesda Presbyterian Church. Leroy Patrick got his 12 and 13-year-old children to integrate the swimming pools in Pittsburgh, in Ohio, and in Youngstown. And it was there that I first began to understand Juneteenth, not from what General Granger did, but from what we did with the mess that General Granger caused on June 19th of 1865 in Galveston Island. The mess came from the chaos, not of the reading of the Emancipation Proclamation. And I'm sorry that I missed my dear friend and colleague, Joe Becton, because if I'm covering any ground that he did. But it was order number 3 that was the critical issue for African Americans, both in Texas and in the Mid-Atlantic states, Pennsylvania and Central Pennsylvania in particular. That article number 3, as some of you may have explained, said 3 things. The first, with the contraband enslaved who had placed themselves under the care of the Union Army would no longer be protected, not only in Texas, but anywhere and everywhere that there was a contraband camp. Now, this is Little Africa's. This is Freetowns. This is Jordan's. And these are all of the places that rose up out of the chaos of being abandoned by that article. The second thing it said, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating what Ron Brown said, it said that Granger advised the enslaved in Texas to go back to their masters and work out a contract for their labor, for their fair labor. Now, how are you going to make a contract with a man that just laid a whip on your back? So there's a lot of myth around what happened. It was not a day of jubilation. The jubilation came from the Freedmen's Bureau trying to reorganize families in 1866 and 1868. And that's where we get our picnics, and that's where we get our reunions. And it came from the AME Zion churches and the Bethel churches, creating lines, the same lines that they used along the Underground Railroad to connect, to reorganize families. So what we have now in Juneteenth, and I'm rushing through this, is a gumbo. We have mixed a lot of things into the same pot. For example, the Juneteenth flag is not red, green, and black.
Thank you.
That's the Pan-African flag of Marcus Garvey. And we do Marcus Garvey and ourselves a disservice if we use those symbols. If we, I mean, it's bad enough if they, I'm gonna use we and they for a minute here because I'm talking to family. You know, if we use the symbols wrong, if we present. So Pan-Africanism is just that. It's 1896 to 1920, it falls off because of Jim Crow, but It is about organizing African countries together. And by 1920, 16 countries have adopted the red, green, and black Pan-African flag. And by 1960, the Black Power movement has adopted what was adopted. But the flag of Juneteenth is red, white, and blue. That was what was bursting through the Texas star, was this powerful. So let us use the symbols right. Juneteenth, yes, is a day for us to look at how do we achieve, despite the fact that Granger had no idea that we would, how do we achieve negotiating with this master for fair? So, the picnic is about the jubilation of the Freedmen's Bureau. The family reunion is about the reuniting of the family, but it is also a day for careful, artful, and arduous examination of, do we have a place in America, and how do we negotiate that contract for fair? So I'm all for the celebrations. I'd like you all to clean up that red, green, and black, because it's confusing a lot of people. I'd like us as a people to try to understand the distinctions between Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, and W.E. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey. These were all strategies that we put into our gumbo called Juneteenth and mixed up, and cooked down like minestrone. And now here's my last thing. I'm raised in Pennsylvania, but I'm schooled in Louisiana. And that is when I truly learned about Juneteenth, from the children of people who knew that it took 6 months more for Granger to put down the Confederates. And it was not until the 13th Amendment in December of 1865. So nobody was freed on Juneteenth, you all. Nobody, because the Confederates were still fighting. And it took 200,000 men of the Union Army and brothers in the USCT who were becoming Buffalo Soldiers to put down that resistance. They are still resisting. And so we need to make this a day of solidarity as well as a day of celebration. The question is, what do you say? Happy Juneteenth, or may your Juneteenth be full of wisdom, or we're still grappling with that. But we have to first get the distinctions of the brothers who are the staircase to where we came, the distinctions between what Booker T. Washington was trying to do and what W.E.B. Du Bois was trying to do, and the language and the symbols of Carter G. Woodson and the colors of the flags that have come down to us to hold on to. So I'm down with the parade. I'm down with the picnic. But I ask you to educate each other about resistance. Flight, resistance, education, empowerment, and enterprise. These are the things, the staircase that came out of Juneteenth and what we've inherited in our celebrations. Put thought into your day tomorrow.
Mr. Lenwood Sloan, thank you very, very much for those wise words. And as you all can see, that we had a very difficult time in trying to even think about restraining each of these speakers, because they have so much to say and wise things to say. So, but I'm going to ask you, Mr. Sloan, can you just talk literally for about 1 minute about the program that's coming up for the honoring the descendants?
Yes, here's my 1 minute. In every one of our neighborhoods, there is an African-American footprint and shadow, a community that has been wiped away through eminent domain or gentrification. even if its skeletons are there, our bones are not. So we picked a community at the Capitol called the 8th Ward. It's now called the Old 8th Ward. And it was completely wiped out in 1920, same time as Tulsa, by eminent domain to build the Capitol. We realized that we can't restore it as a heritage site, but we can restore the legacy of its families. And so we are holding a Pennsylvania homecoming in the style of the Freedmen's Bureau. And we've been working with Messiah University and Harrisburg University to find the descendants of 100 families that have spread across the Mid-Atlantic and inviting them home to the Capitol this Saturday, June 22nd, for a Jubilee homecoming picnic. We are encouraging them, and we're encouraging you all too, to have democracy dinners between Juneteenth and Election Day. We were saying, don't only get out the vote, but get out the understanding of what you're voting for. We're saying, turn your kitchen table into a registration booth and educate yourself, educate enterprise.
Okay, thank you very much. And that would be in Harrisburg that you're speaking.
Yes, and you can go to digitalharrisburg.com and click on homecoming. But we're calling the children who have spread across. It's in Harrisburg, but it's about the passage of the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 19th Amendments that gave us the citizenship. So it's about everybody in one place.
Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to start with our Q&A, questions and answers. What are the questions that we have in chat, Crystal?
Jeannie?
Yeah, we have a question from Nicole Therry Williams. Did the African American Black community celebrate Juneteenth in the Philadelphia region, or was it primarily celebrated in the South? Are there specific foods or foodway traditions associated with the celebration?
And that's for any three of you, any one of you of the three.
Let me start with the food first. The foods that were most served in the traditions and the reorganization were red foods, red velvet cakes, strawberry punch. The people wore red clothing to represent the blood along the trail. So red velvet cake, strawberry cupcake.
Thank you. And the rest of that question?
Now, the tradition of the celebration of Juneteenth above the Mason-Dixon line can be found in the history of the Bethel AME churches and the Wesley AME churches and the Second Baptist churches. As far back as 1870, they organized. These were churches in the North who had accepted both contrabands and, frankly, soldiers returning, USCT soldiers returning from the West to their community.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add that predominantly, that was a Texas thing. As a matter of fact, there's a very famous commentator, Martin. I met him at the Democratic National Convention. He has his own television show. Martin, everybody knows his first name. Yeah, him. And so
the journalist.
Yes. And so we're going down the hall. It's the convention, and I see him. I know he's from Texas. I say, yeah, Texas, Juneteenth. We're all in our Civil War uniforms. That's a Texas holiday, you guys. Not you. You don't know nothing about it. I said, well, let me try to explain to you, because my sergeant grabbed me and said, this is a convention. We're not here to talk to Martin right now. Come on. So I didn't get to explain to him. But yes, some people in Texas feel that we are stealing their holiday and they have no right to it. Of course, in Ohio, they had their Emancipation Day. Up in Rhode Island, they had the Emancipation Day. Ohio, I think, was August 18th. And up in Rhode Island, I think it was August 1st. So there.
Joe, let me catch up with you.
All right,
about Texas saying that we have no right to it. We have to remember, you all, that Texas seceded from the Union 3 days before Abraham Lincoln's inauguration in March 4th of 1861. Texas did not return to the Union until 1870, and they had not passed the 13th, 14th, or 15th Amendment at that time. It was made a condition of their, so Texas may say it's their day, but they have never invested any sweat in lifting us up, Joe. You know, I think it's a day like Mardi Gras or St. Patrick's Day or you know, a parade day, cosmetic.
Okay, thank you. Next question, please.
I did want to respond to that question. I was trying to wait to the men.
Okay.
Give them some time. But it is a Texas thing, and it started actually in the name Juneteenth. And as far as in the history book that all the writers and research I got, it didn't start into 1909. They say around 1890. You won't see that name mentioned anywhere in the history, anywhere. But the correct name of this event is called the Jubilee. That was the correct name of these events. And so you had Juneteenth, and Joe said, in because it came out of a Texas thing. You know, it talks about in the data that I have, San Antonio and Austin, because they said they did celebrate. That's why I see in 1909.
I got to steal 30 seconds of your time.
But it was also called, it was called Juneteenth because as I tell people.
But wait a minute, Ron Brown, I got to steal 30 seconds of your time and propose to all those who are listening that Juneteenth is a Pennsylvania day.
It's a Pennsylvania.
Wait, let me finish.
That's right.
Let me finish, because it was Pennsylvania's governor,
that's right,
Curtin, who called all the northern governors to Altoona to get the votes to pass the Emancipation Proclamation. It was the Emancipation Proclamation which was supported by House Representative Thaddeus Stevens and got through. It was a Pennsylvania day because he read the Emancipation Proclamation to soldiers. He wasn't talking to enslaved people, you all, in Texas. He was talking to their masters. He wasn't talking to us when he read that. He was talking to their masters. He said, unless you all, put your guns down. So we're the part of the chaos, the survival, and the thriving. But it's a Pennsylvania day. Pennsylvania is the fourth state in the Union to pass the 13th Amendment, the fifth state in the Union to pass the 15th Amendment, the seventh state in the Union to pass the 19th Amendment. What happened in Galveston was because of what we set in place and in motion for Lincoln from Pennsylvania. It's a Pennsylvania day, more.
Yeah,
Preach it, baby, preach it. Preach it. I see that we can have a big old a couple more hours on all this.
Yes,
can't
we
we?
can.
Yes.
It is. People don't realize it is, and it's Pennsylvania. It's also Philadelphia, and people don't realize it's also come from the Liberty Bell. And people don't realize on the Liberty Bell is described in scripture called "Proclaim liberty throughout the land to all the inhabitants." Chapter 25, verse 10. If you take that and go into the read that, it said it should be a jubilee unto you, where you stop the oppression of one to the other, returning your people to the tribe, and reuniting the family. So, and that's what happened on Juneteenth Day. So there's a history, and that's this stuff, as I share, is in writing.
Yes, and so is mine, Ron Brown. Ron Brown. By celebrating Texas tomorrow, we cop out to our responsibility of the role that Pennsylvania plays for liberty, justice, for all.
Correct.
So you need to think about beyond Texas.
What do you mean beyond Texas?
No.
I don't even think.
Gentlemen, hello. This can go on for hours and hours, and we're loving it. But our time is coming up. We've answered all of our questions. Bertha, are
Yes.
you want to go ahead and
Oh, God. Well, gentlemen, as Crystal just said and Barbara just said, we could go on for hours. And actually, I really wish we could. Maybe there should be a part 2. I don't know. But or and 3 and possibly 4. But anyway, thank you all very much, gentlemen, for allowing us to share and to hear what you have to say, your knowledge and experience. This was absolutely wonderful. And Crystal is going to finish out with some announcements, and we will go from there. Thank you all so much.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Thank you, presenters. Thank you everyone for who attended. In our chat, you will find some links that will help out. Also, what Lenwood Sloan was talking about, the link is in the chat. Also, you can find it on our website. Also, please stay tuned for our next roundtable session, which will be September 17th, 2024 at 7 p.m. EST. Watch out for our next exciting topic. Like we said, we might have a Juneteenth 2, 3, 4, and then the sequels, just like Jaws. We thank everyone. You have a blessed evening.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.